Well, with those announcements, I'd like to start tonight's show. And I'd like to start it with our series on HO scale modeling. Our sponsor is Mainline Hobby Supply. If we could run their video, please.
Mainline Hobby Supply is your one-stop store for model trains in G, O, S, HO, N and Z scales, including locomotives, rolling stock, track, train sets, and more to help build your model railroad. We are the largest model railroad shop in the area, and we carry a wide range of model railroad supplies across scales. Our friendly staff is always available to help with your modeling needs and to special order anything you may require. Mainline Hobby Supply is in southern Pennsylvania, halfway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. We are only an hour away from Baltimore, and we are easy to get to from the 70, 81, 83, and 270 freeways. Plan to stop by on your next trip through Pennsylvania. Mainline Hobby Supply also has an online store that can cater to your modeling needs wherever you are located. With our large inventory, fixed shipping costs, friendly and knowledgeable service and prompt shipping, consider Mainline Hobby Supply for your next online order. Use the QR code to access our online store.
And we certainly appreciate Mainline Hobbies Supply's support for the show. Now I'd like to introduce the host for HO scale modeling, Ed O'Rourke, MMR. Ed, welcome.
I'm going to talk today about building in a small space. When I moved originally, we had a pretty small area, so I have a thing we're going to show you here. So I call this expanding the canal line. So we're going to have a brief history lesson first. The New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad Company was a conglomeration of 300 different companies put together by J.P. Morgan on the left and Charles Mellon, who was his assistant, or maybe you would properly characterize him as his henchman. And I don't know if that's really a Bowie knife in Morgan's left hand or if that's the arm of the chair with the light on it, but I like to think that it's a Bowie knife. In addition, just about every foot of railroad in southern New England, they also own steamship lines, and almost all the trolley lines in New England. They were what you call the robber barons. And the way they did the original New Haven was organized on August 6, 1872. The way they did it was they bought up any competition that there happened to be in the area. And if someone didn't want to sell out to them, they built a competing line and forced the other line out of business to sell to them on their terms. The history of this is very well documented in a book called The New Haven Railroad, Its Rise and Fall by John L. Weller. It's a textbook on monopolies and their aftermath. If you're interested in the robber barons, it's a great book to read because you'd just be amazed at the stuff that they get away with. Morgan once loaned the U.S. Treasury money so that to overcome a stock market panic, a financial panic back in the turn of the century. So just about every foot of railroad in southern New England, they also own steamship lines, as I said, and trolley lines. This resulted in a huge number of redundant lines into areas with little industry, few residents, and thus very little traffic. Note that there are 4 north-south lines in the center of the state, 3 of which run between New Haven and Hartford. And in the days of dirt roads and horsepower, this was something else, but at its widest, if you look between, let's see if I can get this. If you look between Waterbury over here and Middletown over here, that's a distance you can drive today. It's 25 miles between those 2 spots. And there's actually 4 railroad lines that run north-south in there. At its in the days of dirt roads, they said after motorized travel came along, was a big loser. The canal line, which is the third one from the left here, ran from New Haven on the right of way of what was originally the Farmington Canal, which is why they called it the canal line, ran up to Plainville, where it intersected with the Highland line between Hartford and Waterbury, and then into Farmington. And eventually up to Northampton in Massachusetts, where it connected with the B&A, and finally to Turner's Falls, Mass, where it connected with the Hoosac Tunnel line to Albany. So I modeled New Haven in 1950, give or take a few years, I said, and my plan was always to model the changeover point from steam to diesel to electric at New Haven Station. When I decided to add a branch line above the tracks to the east and west staging yards, I had just recently seen an article in the Shoreliner, which is a publication of the New Haven Railroad Historical and Technical Association, about the canal line. And I decided that trains would go from New Haven to Farmington on the canal line, a distance of about 35 real miles. At Farmington, the New Hartford branch diverged with the canal line ending in a mirror. And this was, going to be different than my urban shoreline route. So if you look here, this is the Plainville area over here. It sits above the west staging yard here and the tracks that access it. I didn't have enough room to make this connection here that you see a continuous curve. It would have been too steep and too tight. So I designed a switchback and with a siding and a runaround track. And this was pretty much all I planned on in that particular area that is called Plainville. Stayed that way for 19 years. In the fall of 2019, with the rest of the railroad essentially complete with at least basic scenery, and I began to contemplate what I could do in that area. It was a junction with the Highland line, which I could model with an interchange track and another mirror. I could add a siding or two and a station, and I could find a place for my water tower model, which was originally going to go in Farmington, but I didn't have enough room for it. This is Plainville, Connecticut. The challenges so there you have some idea of what those look like. This water tower was what I wanted to model. The challenges that go into this, the shelf is only 12 inches wide. I need to maintain access to the water meter and the water supply shutoff, which is over here underneath this part of the layout. I needed to be able to access the phone connections, which are behind the wall up here, when we still had a landline. I had to be able to access the electric service box, which is just to the left of what you see over here. And I didn't want, there's a duct under here that goes into an operating pit on the right over here. And I didn't want to make that any wider or make it any harder to get under than it already is. Tracks need to enter and leave through the backdrop. You can see here where the track goes underneath the backdrop, and it has to come up here, and there's another hole in it there. So I installed a 24-inch high, 1/8 inch tempered masonite backdrop. The right side, as you can see, has a curve to clear those water pipes. I meet the divider wall, and the left end has a 90-degree corner. I then arranged a consultation with Lark Products. Lark Products is my friend Bill Brown. He produces these photo backdrops. So he measured the space, gave me a bunch of alternatives, and this was what I came up with. This is actually called Green Hills. You can see how it kind of lines up along there. Once I selected it, he printed it out. We installed it. And then my wife, Judy sews, so she produced a drape above the blacktop to hide the pipes and wires and everything in less than 24 hours after I asked her. I had that. Then I needed industry in a town. I wanted to use structures I already had on hand as much as possible. You've seen the box, so there's a lot of stuff here. Like many of us, I have this box full of building parts, and because of the difficult part was on the right, I decided where I had to go through the backdrop, I decided to do the easy part first, which is over here on the left. You can see here, the SM Tinsley wholesale, grocery. In between, this track is a siding track and an interchange track. This track is the end of the runaround track. And there's a mirror there that makes it go on forever. And that's how I camouflaged that end of the layout. The SM Tinsley building was a model power kit called the Delta Fraternity House. So again, don't be afraid to use things for other than they say on the box. The boiler house addition on the front is from the Revell engine house, which we talked about the last time. And the rear building is design preservation models. So you can see how that sort of worked out. As I said, the rear building is design preservation models, and the ones on the wall here that you can see, the background structures come out of the same guy, Bill Brown, the Lark Products, comes out of he has a CD, and he has just photos upon photos and photos of these. The nice part of them is they're in a Word document, so you can resize them to any size you want, from HO scale down to whatever you like to get them more into the distance. So that worked quite well. Let's see, where are we here? All right, then I moved on to the J.W. Schlossberg Coal Company. This was an actual coal dealer in Plainville, and I couldn't look any actual pictures of it, so I adapted it from this building, which is the Cobleskill, New York company, and kit bashed and scratch built using parts from the Walthers, Walton and Sons lumberyard. I had the lumber buildings elsewhere on the layout, and decided I would use them to model this, as you can see here. Note the arrows drawn on the clapboard down there. That's to show which end of those go up. I can't tell you why I do that, except that, there have been occasions when I've built a building out of clapboard siding and got farther along a bit and discovered that I had the clapboard going the wrong way. So I always do that on the front and the back of these things, just so we make sure that there isn't that problem. So this is more progress here as I tried to fit it in. Note that the back wall is curved a bit to make it fit the curve in the backdrop, and it's a very close clearance on the track there. The base is a piece of plywood. So there we have that. This is as it comes along, and there it is finished. I built I wanted the track to go up into it just for a little added interest. So there we are with some decals put on for signage, and it fit into the area pretty well. Had some parts left over, so I decided that I would use them. The lumber company office and a couple of, this was the lumber company office, the white stuff here, and some DPM walls that were left over from something that I was doing. I decided that the false front lumber company was a little too western for northeastern Connecticut. So I went back to the parts box, and the rest became a brick building with a wood frame addition. There you see it. That I built, again, to fit as a flat behind the layout to give this town some personality. I needed to add some more background buildings. So more of these printed ones that you'll see as we go along here are again from Bill Brown's CDs. As I said, you can resize them. I've used a lot of them on the layout. I print them on heavy paper, spray them with dull coat so the ink doesn't run. That's a key step if you're going to do scenery in front of it, that you're going to wet down with wet water and then put glue into. If you don't seal those up with dull coat, the water can leach up into them and make the ink run. Don't ask me how I know that. But it's, I will tell you that discovering that it does that involved a lot of cursing and swearing. I use wallpaper border and seam adhesive to attach these to the backdrop. This gives you some working time. A lot of people use spray adhesive. Spray adhesive, when you put it on, that's about it. The wallpaper border and seam adhesive, you can slide around a little bit and get things into position a little bit better. There's some more of them. I've got some of the flats there are leftover parts from some different buildings. The one with the bricked up windows on the right actually started out as the old Ramsey Journal building of Railroad Model Craftsman fame that you can see here. There's my tower that I built. These are just some DPM, especially if I've used the front of the building. A lot of times I don't bother putting attaching the back to it because it's, you're not going to see it. These are City Classic Smallman Street warehouse parts. And the elevated crossing shanty, which shows up here somewhere. Over here on the left is just one of the old Atlas line side structures. I added a siding for the grocer, and we have the switchback. Now that people have complained when I've had them switch up there because you can only get the engine or a car into the tail of the switchback. You can't move things around, so it makes it a little more exciting. And the grocery lead is also a switchback. If you want to get into this over here on the right, which goes to the station, you have to be careful you don't get too many cars in here before you try and do that. So it's a lot of fun to operate, take some real puzzling around.
Thank you so very much. That
Yes, sir.
great looking model doing there.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.